So in this video, I'm going to be talking to you about David's sin and ultimate punishment. So like always, I will paraphrase. I recommend that you do actually read it for yourself, but it's in 2 Samuel chapters 11 and it leads on to some of chapter 12 as well. So if you didn't know the story, so basically David sees Bathsheba in the garden. Bathsheba is Uriah's wife and he decides he wants her. So they sleep together and unfortunately she gets pregnant. So David comes up with the plan, you know what, I'm going to get Uriah to come back. So at the minute they're dealing with the war. So I'll get Uriah to come back to give us an update and stuff, and hopefully he'll then sleep with his wife because, you know, he's in the area with his wife. Instead he sleeps outside of David's door instead. The second day he goes, you know what, let's just get him drunk. So he gets drunk, but again, he doesn't sleep with his wife. He actually sleeps with the servants. And then David, this is where it takes a dark turn. So that's when David was like, okay, the only way to get rid of this man is to stick him on the front line and hope he gets murdered. And he gets murdered. And then when he's murdered him, he then makes Bathsheba his wife. And that's when God uses somebody called Nathan to speak to David, and basically he makes known what he's done, and basically David admits that he's sinned, and Nathan says, God's washed your sins, but you'll still have to be punished, and that punishment is the death of the child which he and Bathsheba had together. So David committed 2 sins, technically 3, because the way Nathan first talks to David, it's kind of a parable about having things that aren't yours. So technically it's kind of like stealing / adultery, but the main 2 is he committed adultery and also caused someone's death, which here you'd probably call manslaughter, to be fair. But even then, I think in this day and age, I don't know if there would be any charge. Either way, we're not talking about this day and age, we're talking about this story. So what God points out to David is that what he has done has brought shame to the church, and specifically says that the enemies are rejoicing because now they've got something to kind of, you know, hate towards the church and stuff. Like, look at what David's done. Bear in mind, David's supposed to be king. David's supposed to have that responsibility that he's supposed to be what everyone looks up to him, look up to, and he's committed these sins. And this kid is like a constant reminder to the enemies and to him that basically the child represents the sin. So that is one of the reasons why God decided, you know, he had to get rid of this child, which seems a bit harsh, but we'll get into it later on as well. But the thing is, if you think about it deeply as well, think about it. Bearing in mind, at this time, the enemies are rejoicing. They're like, yeah, you're not so great now. I've got all this, basically. I can't really necessarily imagine what they'd be saying, to be fair, but it's a disgrace to the church. This child growing up, is it really going to have a smooth life? Because there's going to be whispers, there could even be taunts towards this child. So you got to think as well, is the child's life going to be fulfilling as well? Now, the next thing that a lot of people will say is about the child's death is it's not fair that the child died because of his father's sin, you know. And Jesus does say later on that, I can't remember what passage it is, where someone asks, oh, is this child disabled because of his parents' sin? And Jesus is like, that's got nothing to do with it. In the end, I believe he had the child's interest at hand, is what I've said before. And when it comes to illness, the short illness the child has, it didn't specify what illness it was and if the child was in any pain or in any extreme distress. But if you do know about God's grace, the child, because of God's just judgment, the child's soul will be in a better place. I know there's still arguments about, do babies still go to yes, they do. Go back to Moses. All you need to do is, if you're unsure about that, go back to Moses and the 10 spy story, where God's ruling was two of the spies that said positive things could go to the promised land, and also the children who were not old enough yet to know what's right and wrong. So obviously we don't necessarily know how old this child was who died, but let's be honest, he didn't leave it till the child was like 10 years old to put the child asleep. I actually use the term asleep. It's used a lot in the Bible, because when you're in when you are a Christian, you don't die. The term is you actually go to a deep sleep. But anyway, so the kid is in a just place anyway, which I would say is better than if the child did live, because the child would be tormented. It wouldn't be good for the church either, and it just wouldn't help the whole situation. But yeah, so the next video I'm going to do in the series, I'm thinking of either doing Noah on its own or doing Noah and Babylon together. I'm not 100% sure yet, but that's going to be a bit of a while before I get this video up, probably next year, February probably, because it's going to be one where I need to fully study on. So yeah.